Hi everyone, Mike Howard is the operations manager for the Robben Island Balloon Run, and I've been asked many questions over the last couple of years, and I thought it would be best to pose those questions to Mike with all of his experience and take it from there. So Mike, thanks very much first of all for your time. There have been many questions that have been asked, and I've listed some of them. So the first question is what credentials do you have in flying, and what makes you a good person to be the operations manager of the Robben Island Balloon Run?
Well, from flying perspective, my full-time job is I'm actually an airline pilot.
Right.
I've been flying hot air balloons for over 20 years now, and I have about 5 or 6 cluster balloon flights under my belt. So when you take all that into account, I'm probably one of the most experienced cluster balloon pilots with aviation experience out there.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, I guess the question that most people ask is it safe?
It's as safe as you make it. If you go out and do something like this and you don't actually weigh up all the risks and don't mitigate the risks, then it's not safe. But if you do what we're doing, which is mitigating as much of the risks as we are, then your particular flight is going to be very safe.
Okay, fantastic. And what are the biggest risks that exist, and how do you mitigate against them?
The biggest risks actually don't involve the flying. The biggest risks are in the inflation and the landing process. So getting enough people, getting enough equipment, getting it flying, get everything filled up, ready to fly in time. That can be pose a bit of a problem if you take off too late because you didn't start filling soon enough. But if you get the right people, the right number of people, and everything set up beforehand, and the filling process, everybody knows what they're doing, that mitigates that risk. The actual flight, as long as everything is set up properly, and you've got the balloons weighed off properly, then the flight is the easy part. Then it comes to the landing. And the biggest risk about landing is just landing on something, hitting something. Yeah. So what you want to do is make sure you pick a nice open area where there aren't any hazards for you to hit. Yeah. Other than that, there aren't any risks.
Okay, well, as we've discussed, the plan for us, because we'll be going to the coast from Robben Island, and it's quite a narrow band of coast, so our plan is to land within the 100 meters short of the coastline, because it's a nice soft landing. Of course, we've got a support vessel that's going to be going with us all the way. We may have other organizations like the National Sea Rescue Institute in South Africa. So that soft landing in water, what are your thoughts around that? Have you done a water landing before?
I've actually did one flight where I came very low and I dragged through a lake.
Right.
And that was a lot of fun, but the biggest problem about water landing is, can you swim?
Yes.
If you can't swim, it's a danger. If you can swim, you're going to be okay.
Well, I've been surfing since I was about so high, so that covers that. How do you control the descent? And what are your options?
It's actually fairly simple. What you do is, once you determine what size balloons you're using, you then go through a bit of an experiment where you find out what one balloon will lift. And for an example, a 5-foot balloon, a 5-foot diameter balloon will lift 2 kilograms. So if you've got X amount of 5-foot balloons, you then know how much you're lifting. So if you take your weight and then you take some extra ballast, whether it's sand or water, if you were to then take off, reach equilibrium, i.e. you're now flying straight and level, and then were to pop one balloon, you have lost 2 kilos of lift. Right. So you'll start descending. If you want to increase that rate of descent, you would pop another balloon, popping a balloon with either a knife or a gun, an air pistol, and so you'll increase your rate of descent. If you want to slow that descent down, then you will release some ballast, and you can get these water containers that show marks on how much water is weighed, or how much water. So you then know how much water to release to equate to either a balloon or half a balloon. So once you've done the maths and the experiment on the ground, flying it is fairly simple. It's just a case of popping a balloon to go down, releasing some ballast to level off or to go back up.
Sure. And what equipment do you have on you? Because you've got no frame of reference, because you're literally floating in the air. You're not next to anything to see if you're going up or down? What is the equipment that's required for the flight, and how do you use that equipment?
I tend to, on the flights that I've done, you can get hang glider or power motor varios, and they're an instrument that show you if you're going up and down. So I always have one of those on, and just strapped to your leg. I'm usually sitting in some sort of harness, whether it's a power glider harness or a chair that I've made up, and then from underneath that you're hanging below the lifting bar, and you've got a gun, an air pistol hanging down, tied off on the from the lifting bar. You've got a knife on a long stick on the lifting bar, and that's basically it. But for your up and down, just a vario, and it's a fairly simple instrument that hang glider pilots use or power motor pilots use.
Well, on the website you'll see a flight that Mike's done in Germany for Greenpeace. It's one of our YouTube clips, as well as some equipment that there's some diagrams in one of the tabs on our websites showing the equipment that we will be using. Mike, can you describe the design of the lifting bar and why you've designed it in that way?
It's a fairly basic design. What we've done is we've taken a metal bar, and on the top of the bar we've put some metal, we've welded on some metal loops, and that's what you connect the balloons to. And below the bar we've put some loops on there which we connect instruments, tools, the gun, the knife and whatever. But I think the clever thing about the bar is the swivel pin. And the problem with flying a cluster balloon is you might take off going this way, but when you come into land you ultimately want to be landing backwards, especially if it's a fast landing. You want to be landing backwards, so you're dragging backwards. You don't want to be dragging forward and falling on your face. So what we designed was basically a swivel pin where the harness, there's a bar with another bar below it, and the connection between those two allows the bar below to rotate. So you've got 360 degrees rotation, which allows you to film everything. You're not trying to film over your shoulder. You can twist around, but the balloons stay fixed. And more importantly, though, for landing, if you find yourself coming in for fast landing, where you need to be going in backwards, then you can swivel around and land going backwards. And then that's the clever thing about the bar. Other than that, it's just two bars with hooks on to hook everything onto.
Great. Final question is, have you got any message for people that want to do this kind of thing at home?
Cluster ballooning is very basic. It's basically a case of attaching a whole bunch of toy helium balloons to yourself and flying off, and it seems fairly basic, and the movie Up made it look very basic. But there is quite a bit of science involved. You've got to make sure you know what the helium lift is going to do. You don't want to put on a lot of helium balloons and then find yourself at 20,000 feet. So you've got to know the science behind it. So it's worth doing a little bit of investigation beforehand. But once you've done that, then it's just go have a flight and enjoy yourself. Make sure you don't fly in any space and you don't upset anybody else. And then go and enjoy yourself.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much for your time.
You're welcome.